So I'm going to start, first of all, with some small projects, some very new projects that we've just completed. Lately, I think we've been called to do a lot of renovations. I think people have been buying like apartments and homes and, people moving to smaller spaces as well. So this is an apartment near the airport. The client actually looked us up on the internet. They actually came from Miri, and then they just popped in our office one day and go, I have this apartment space, I don't know what to do with it. And like, okay. So first of all, we did a site visit. We had never met these clients before, so we didn't know how the working was like. So it was quite a strange relationship to start off in the beginning because we didn't really know much about each other. But I guess through the process of listening and understanding what their brief requirements were, this was a young family, and she was about to give birth like yesterday. So she had 2 other young children as well. So she wanted basically a space that was comfortable enough for all of them. The apartment that they had, the space is very dark. There was not really enough natural light into the living and dining spaces. Bedrooms were a bit narrow, and it's going quite fast. Okay, sorry. So these are some of our construction photos, basically demolition. We spent a lot of time, I think, doing a lot of discussion with the client about what they would like in their spaces. So because this was actually she didn't really have a time constriction so much, but then and then towards the end she was like, I'm about to give birth, I need this done ASAP because I'm about to be chased out from my house in Miri. So we were like, okay, let's fast track this. So it was basically the process. I mean, usually it's like design development, contract documentation, and then we stop. But it's sort of a very ongoing process. So throughout the construction process, we're still doing, it's still an ongoing design process as well. A lot of I think the previous 3D perspectives that you saw, the clients really seemed to like what we gave them, which is quite strange. There wasn't really so much like vigorous design development process inside. We do a lot of concentration on our furniture and our detailing. I think the concept, without going too much into this, was to basically help to carve out the spaces so that each of the spaces is more defined, like the living areas, because I can't show you any plans because for privacy reasons. But basically, in the end, we basically managed to define each sort of living area in a way that they could basically identify, okay, this is a living space, this is dining, this is a family entry, and so forth. Quite an interesting story. Even after construction with this slide here, there was this light box that we designed over the kitchen bench. And they saw it, and then they were like, okay, I think it's a good thing for put like my wine rack on top of it. Could you take it down and maybe fix this like wine rack on this light box? And we're like, it took like 10 men to get it up, and now you want us to take it down. We're like, okay, let's look into it, So I think our clients as well in this process, they were very good clients. They started sort of learning the process with us as well. And it was interesting because we got to know them quite well throughout the process, and then they started to give suggestions into what they liked and so forth, and what they were seeing. Basically, I think you can see for yourself, we use a lot of timber, a lot of like basically whitewashed walls to give a feeling of vastness and spaciousness, and we used a lot of the furniture to conceal some of the big columns that was sticking in the middle of the space. We're quite obsessed with lighting as well. We spend a lot of time doing our reflected ceiling plans. I think most architects do that. Because I think, because this space, the dining space, didn't really have much natural light. So we were quite careful into considering how to create sort of ambient lighting in this sense. These are actually some photos from our client as well, how the kids are using their bedrooms. It's basically the kids' bedrooms are bunk beds that we designed for them to climb up, and then they're able to play underneath as well. So these were the photos the client showed to us. It's still an ongoing process, still some additional work that we're doing. Okay, so this is another project, another small project that we did for Shine Pharmacy, the latest outlet in Spring, basically. We did a project for them in Viva City, and that was an interesting experience. We were a bit surprised that they came back to us again, but anyway, but they quite liked the way that we worked together as well. So this was a very fast project. They were like, I think it was when was it, January? And they said we needed it to be ready in June or July, something ridiculous. And we're like, okay. So we just drove straight into it. Usually how we begin, if we are short in time, we just show them some precedent images about, what would you like, basically. Their brief was quite simple. They wanted a very sort of, they wanted a pharmacy that looked like a pharmacy. Yes, that was the exact words. A pharmacy that looked like a pharmacy. And so we're like, okay, what is that, So we decided to look at their current shop that they had in I think Jalan Song. We noticed that they had a lot of products as well on display. So that's how we initially started our design, to help to categorize basically all their different sort of areas such as health and supplements, skincare, medicines. They told us they needed like 1 million cupboards for medicines and so forth. We also sort of based the design for the furniture, the reception counter, and the skincare based on their logo design, which is like a sun ray. Shine. So we thought, let's try to do that, So, I think we were also involved kind of in their rebranding of logo because we came up with a new design for their Shine Pharmacy Plus, because I just came back from Hong Kong and I saw Manning's Plus, this Hong Kong, it was like really cool. So I told them, they were like, oh yeah, let's rebrand and become really minimalist and all sorts. So it was because these clients are quite good. We get along quite well with them. And the furniture actually sort of changed initially from what we showed them, the reception counter. We decided to use some sort of black and white subway tiles just to reminiscent about how old school apothecaries and pharmaceuticals looked like in the olden days. Just some reference to it. The ceiling design that you see, the cove ceilings and so forth, the recessed, is actually a play on their Shine Pharmacy word, SP. So we try to integrate some of it in there to give it some context. So a lot of this, because it was such a fast project that we sort of were designing and we're sort of like coming up with ideas along the way as well. We had an issue with the floor, a big issue. The project itself actually was meant to be finished in a month, but we ended up being delayed for how long? A month and a half? Yeah. Had big issues with the floor. We had to change like floor material like three times. We screed like 3 times. We had to ask the structural repair guy to come, why is the floor not flat? And we realized it's because it was sloping from one to the end. I think you saw the ping pong ball exercise, yeah? Anyway. So I just want to share with you some process about, yes, completion, practical completion, but there's still defects that we look into. So there's things like, why is there gaps in the lights and why is there gaps? I think all of us are quite familiar with that. So these are some of the completed photos that was actually taken by one of our very talented architects in our office. So yeah, almost 2-month delay. It was also interesting because we were also dealing with a lot of the spring management as well, and how they actually, we were learning from them as well, basically how they dealt with delays and so forth. Contractors, I think, they tried very hard. They were kind of new at the job, but they were available at that time. A lot of our our normal contractors we used were quite busy at that time. So it was our first time working with them, which is a bit risky because we normally like to work with people that, especially for such a fast project. But in the end, I think the result is okay. I think, rehabilitation, I think overseas, they tend to categorize rehabilitation supports quite well, but I think in the current shop, it was just all over the place. So we thought, let's put it like showcase it so that people can see that you're actually selling these items. So the skincare, the island that you see, basically it's a way for them to show their products, like the special of the month, that sort of thing. So in the end, the floor became like hardwood floor, which is a pretty luxurious floor finish for a retail shop. So I'm going to go into an architecture house, a C house, sorry. I think, so the clients here, basically, it's quite interesting. 3 generations live in this detached house. The clients who approached us, he was living with his son and his daughter-in-law and 2 of his very lovely girls. They approached us. They have this very, 1970s detached house. They wanted to basically... they were actually quite happy to have a completely new house. There wasn't really anything that they were so, what's the word, that they wanted to keep about the current house? Nostalgic, yeah. They basically, we were trying in the beginning, the design process, to keep sort of some nostalgic elements to the house. Just to give it some context, because we thought like 3 generations live in here. It's got some history to it. But in the end, they were sort of like, we actually don't mind if we have a brand new house, actually. So they were quite game about seeing new ideas and what we could do. Basically, I think what we tried to do in the plan, which was to sort of differentiate like the lightness and darkness in terms of the living area would be the light feature, and the more private areas would be the more sort of dark, sort of darker space, in terms of plan layout. So there were some design options that we showed them. So it was more about the integration of the negatives and positives and so forth. We tried to use a lot of like louvers as sort of sun shading devices, give some definition to the houses as well, the bedrooms upstairs as well in particular. One of the requirements is that they wanted higher ceilings and basically more natural light into their living spaces. So construction began, I think, about 2 years from the time that we started the conversation with them, didn't it? Anyway, I went away on maternity leave, so Jeffrey had to take over. But anyway, so we actually had some interesting, conversations with the neighbors during the construction. Across the road, actually, the neighbor who I'm quite familiar with, she came across, we started talking because after a site visit, and she goes like, look at this house. I mean, at that time, it was sort of like not painted. It was just like raw concrete, and the roof was not even up. It was just like beams, and they're like, it's terrible. Look at that, And we were like, oh, I think it will look better after it's finished and it's got some landscaping, And she goes, who are the architects? And so we are. So it's very interesting conversation. So because I think they were talking about how the neighborhood context didn't quite fit in, whereas we looked to the left and right of the houses, they all look like palatial, sort of Renaissance-style houses. And we were like, okay, yeah, point taken. Everyone has their own opinions. Basically, our job is to design for our clients, basically. So, yeah, Borneo 744.
All right. Our next project is Borneo 744. It's a unique development that involves designing an entrepreneurial incubator for the creative community in Sarawak. Situated in Pending, on a piece of 10 acres land adjacent to the river, which was once a government-owned workshop. This is the existing conditions of the warehouses. As you can see, it's very run down. Lots of overgrown vegetations, both outside and inside the building. A lot of money was spent to clean up the space. The size consists of 5 blocks. Block A is for performing arts. Block B is for entrepreneurs. C and D are for arts and crafts. The early design was very ambitious, where budget and time was not an issue before the 7th of May 2016, which happened to be a significant day for Sarawak as well. In order to meet the 20 million budget and a 4-month completion tight schedule, we had to revise our proposal for the 8th time into a container-inspired insertion design, where most of the facade were left intact. This was the 23 million proposal, and this was just now was the 20 million proposal, where it gets less and less people. Block C, the guinea pig block, we call it, where all the experiments happens here. At the end, we only have enough money to spend on half of the building. It's designed for Tenoti, a local weaving studio. The whole project for this phase started off with a phone call to through the newspaper to the container specialist, where we begin to study and understand the fabrication process of containers, its cost and its limitation. This is our mock-up sample just now at the corner. Our containers are 3.6 meter wide. The design started off very rigid, so we started to experiment so that we can give the B744 container some character. And the contractor has been very kind to oblige to our request, testing out door handles here using our leftover electrical conduits. As we only have 2 weeks to go from schematic design to tender documents, we are unable to develop many details, therefore having to rely on site adjustment. For example here, instead of having a straight entrance, on site we decide to tilt it. Here in our tender document, we only managed to indicate some louvers pattern. So during the construction phase, we went back to some of our early concept, which is quite hard to see, sorry, it's a weaving pattern here. And this is what we ended up creating to suit the Tenotti studio. We also tried to develop graphics for the facade. As there were no money for facade treatment, we developed a range of weaving patterns for each block. We used an MC Escher motifs, pigeon motifs, to commemorate all the pigeons that we chased away. This is the new, it's still there, yes, I know. Stephen, still there. New facade with brick wall and glass louvers, recycling some of the old roof sheets that we took down. Inside is very simple, we don't have a lot of budget, we just use a cool bubble insulation, cement screed. Block A is the tallest and the widest of all the blocks, so we made the wildest design for this building. Here we put in a cat inside for better acoustic treatment. We tell our clients, and also and eventually we ended up being quite a boxy design. This is the block A, black box going up. This is the pattern design that we have done for this particular block. The block is naturally ventilated, and we put in some giant fans to ventilate the space. Remember the heads that we were showing you? Well, we never did. This was what we were supposed to build. But on site, we did some modification, and we modified the entrance so that it's more welcoming, and we also put an abstract cat back in to the design. The cat consists of 2 entrances to the black box at the head and at its tail, and the ticketing office in its tummy. This is the black box with a 42 STC rating. We also managed to source locally for some very good acoustic doors. Block B is the magic office. The main entrance is here. The F&B is over here, and inside are meeting rooms and hot desks area. As you can see, construction takes place very quickly. Within 1 week, the job is pretty much done. After our experiment with Block C entrance, we are now developing not just in 2 dimensions, but in 3 dimensions as well. Here we are talking to the welder for the 3rd time, how he needs to cut off the metal and redo it again. We tried many versions of window shapes for the Block B meeting rooms that is sticking out of the facade. And it wasn't until we have electricity for the site that we tested the lights, and then a shadow with an M was magically casted onto the container. So this is how we were inspired to cut all this M shape for the magic office. The door opening used to be rectangular, and we started to taper them. The main door concept was also simplified throughout the process. At the end, we just ended up using our typical architectural door symbol as our pattern. Block B is a fully air-con space. We put in a 3-layer cool bubble with insulation for better performance for this air-con environment. Fiber reinforced panel on the rooftop to provide natural lighting into from the jack roof, and M&E surfaces are all exposed. This is our B744 car porch entrance. This was our early crazy design when we were thinking container, and then we had to tone it back down, and so we studied the existing office and we followed the roof pitch. over here we're making adjustment on site to make sure the angle is as per our requirement. We also experiment with starting to experiment with different container profile. I personally quite like this particular profile rather than a typical one. And our gate, instead of a rectangular gate, we also try to make signages out of them to be arrows. A special mention has to be made to the entire team, our visionary client who is here tonight with us, and the fantastic builders that has stick with us all the way through, and of course our very own IDC team, Janani, Yin Tian, and Bong. These are the crazy things that we are still proposing to Stephen. He doesn't know yet, but no more money. Anyway, we have a lot of leftover site material which we're trying to create sculptures out of them, and creating our next Kuching cat. We are now in the midst of designing the interior for Magic Office. Construction is supposed to start in the next 2 weeks and finish by middle of March. I don't know how it's going to happen. As the site is so close to Bindawa, we are trying to use a lot of Bindawa-related material, fishing nets and ropes to be our inspiration. All right. This is our last project. Pecha Kucha all began when we started getting involved with Borneo 744. We noticed there was a lack of public platforms for artists in Kuching, so we thought we could help by creating a platform for them to share their works and passions. Some of us have been to Pecha Kucha nights overseas, and it clicked one day, why don't we be the Kuching organizer? And so we contacted Tokyo Pecha Kucha, and we got their approval to start Pecha Kucha Kuching. Again, it actually started a few years back, but it didn't continue. Pecha Kucha 2020 is all about the art of concise presentation, such as the one that we just gave you, which we are not very good at yet. Limit to 10 speakers per event, and each speaker gets 20 slides at 20 seconds per slide, which gives each speaker approximately 6 minutes and 40 seconds. It has been challenging and stressful to say the least. It's a lot harder to persuade creatives to speak in public than catching Pokemons. However, one of the most rewarding things throughout the process is that suddenly we are exposed to all of these beautiful, weirdly wonderful experiences that people in Kuching are going through. The participants normally submit their works to us and provide a short description of what they will be talking about. Once we have curated and arranged the flow of the presentations, we invite our speakers for one of our regular Pizza Fridays at our office, where we have a fun and informal practice. Pecha Kucha is a non-profit event, and all proceeds go to covering our costs for the venue, equipment, etc. Fortunately, we have, again, a strong team of energetic and creative minds within our own practice, and with our volunteers, times, and efforts, we are able to pull together a group of interesting and passionate group of speakers for our Pecha Kucha events. Currently, we are in the midst of arranging a Pecha Kucha event for the youth, and we are excited at the prospect of unveiling some of these growing talents. With this, we hope that we can engage further with the local artistic community, and that we get to collaborate more with them in order to promote and showcase the local artistic scene to a global world. Thank you very much. And our Pecha Kucha, we target to be April, okay? Bong. Thank you.